So another flashback we're talking about here. Rage. The original Rage, the very first Rage. The first game of the sequel that's coming out next month. This seems to be what Bethesda is doing lately, is just kind of rebooting old franchises. They did it with Prey. I guess they didn't really do it with Doom. Doom is definitely in the same wheelhouse, but Rage seems to be like they're kind of rebuilding what that game is. It's still going to be, Rage 2 is still going to be a first person shooter, but big focus on abilities and maybe a little bit more of an open world. But we wanted to check out the original, which came out in, was it 2011? Is that when this one came out?
I believe so. 11 or 12.
I just want to make sure, double check that. 2010, November 2010.
Oh, good
on
Lord.
The PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and Windows. Oh, it's also been ported to iOS. Wow. I bet that's a really great version of that game. So yeah, this was kind of like a big game because this was, at this point, I believe, id Software's follow-up to Doom 3, which came out a ways before this game. So it was kind of like a lot of eyes were on it because, you know, id Software's, you know, Wolfenstein, Doom, Quake, the first-person shooter developer, as it were. And, you know, as time went on, they kind of like ended up being superseded by some other studios in that department, but eyes were still on them for kind of like pushing the genre forward. And they were kind of out coming with Rage, talking about like the technology behind it, and you know, that it was, you know, gonna be a, you know, just a in their wheelhouse kind of thing. Was this also the first game that Bethesda published with them?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if Doom 3 was Bethesda.
I don't think so.
I know the BFG edition was, but obviously that was later.
Right. I'm pretty sure this was their first time working with Bethesda.
Yeah, because Doom 3 was Activision.
Okay.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, good for them. Yep, publisher Activision. Okay. Yeah, so this was their first time working with Bethesda. And I feel like it was also around the time that Skyrim came out. I remember these two games kind of being in my wheelhouse around the same time. And for me anyway, it was like one of, this was also when I was first kind of dipping my toe into PC gaming. So I had just built a PC, and Skyrim was one of the first games that I had gotten on it, and Rage was going to be one of those games too, so I was really looking forward to it. And kind of the narrative around the launch of this game especially was the performance issues on the PC, and how it was a little bit not what people were expecting from you know, the people that brought you Doom, let's say. And that's kind of where I'm coming from it. But I know, Lee, you're more coming from it from the console perspective.
Yes.
And I'll let you kind of talk about the Xbox 360 version, and then we'll wrap around to me and Derek talking about the PC version. So how has your experience been on the 360?
Well, I played it on both. I played it on 360 and the backwards compatible one. It seemed to run a lot smoother on the one than it did. Because obviously it's quite a, when you're kind of, because it's broken into two segments, obviously the driving section and the shooting section.
Yep.
Kind of the Shooting 7's obviously very kind of code heavy, and it did chug quite a bit on the 360. It's taken a lot of that out. It's kind of made it a lot of a smoother experience on the one. But it was a game that was actually built for the consoles primarily anyway.
Yes.
Which I understand also bears fruit when you kind of try to play it with anything that's not a controller. I understand it's not particularly nice to play with a keyboard. I don't know if you want, because you're playing with the keyboard, aren't you? Key B and M.
I started playing with the mouse and keyboard, and then I actually switched over to the gamepad on PC, and the gamepad experience is better. Some of the button layouts aren't. It's more of like what we've come to expect from first-person control schemes over the past, like 8 years, have changed a little bit. But so certain things are on weird buttons and stuff like that. But overall, the experience is better, especially in the driving, because the driving is like really bad with trying to make a sharp turnaround or something like that with the WASD keys. So yeah, if you're gonna play this game on PC, I would recommend doing it with a controller, because in my experience, using the mouse and keyboard, even in the shooting like linear corridor sections, the mouse and keyboard wasn't great. I found it so when we're talking about on PC, especially with the lineage of id, we're talking about like really fast, really precise, frantic first-person shooters, and that's not really what this game is delivering. It's way more deliberate than that, and the way that the enemies move is almost subverts your expectation of what you're going to get when you're pointing your mouse at an enemy and pulling the trigger. They do things like they run on the walls, they flip, they jump over objects, and when you're with the preview coverage of this game, it looked really cool. Like when you see these enemies jumping on the wall and over tables and stuff like that, and then like the guy throws the wing stick, which is like a three-bladed boomerang that cuts heads off and arms and stuff like that. It all looks really cool, but then when I started like really diving into it, what I realized was like, but it also feels like it's all very scripted. Like the combat encounters didn't feel very dynamic to me. Like every time you play through this mission, this particular enemy is always going to jump on this wall and run along this particular path. And if you're ready for it, you're going to be able to hit him. Or if you're not, you're just going to waste a whole lot of ammo not hitting him. And it really came full front when I checked out the Scorcher DLC, which I know, Lee, you didn't check out. But
no.
If you do have that, you can actually access it right from the first hub area that you get to. And that felt so much like a on-rails shooter. It was crazy. Like you have all of the, like, this environment where all of these catwalks and walkways are like crisscrossing above you, and enemies are jumping off of them, but you can't get to them yourself. Like you're on this narrow path through this level, and if it wasn't for the fact that you were actually using the keys on the keyboard or the analog stick to push your character through, it would feel like it was an on-rail shooter. Like the game could just take over, put you into this location, have all of these enemies emerge and jump at you, and you shoot them, and then automatically move on to the next area. And from that perspective, it's actually pretty good. Like it looks really good when it does stuff like that, and the enemy animation is really nice, and like the sounds and everything like that are really cool and immersive, and the guns do feel good. They feel heavy, they feel powerful. But when you're, looking for something that's a little bit more kinetic, a little bit more fast-paced, it just wasn't delivering that for me. Especially with the mouse and keyboard, it didn't really feel responsive either. Felt better
But
with
do you
the
think
gamepad,
that's with? Do you feel like that's with hindsight though? Because we're looking at it in a kind of a very much pre-Rage 2 mindset, and we're talking about stuff like what happened post Rage with like you look at like your Wolfensteins and your Doom 16s, but it has got a lot more in common with the slower pace of a Doom 3. And it's more of a post Doom 3 thing than it is a pre New Order or whatever. So I
think that there's definitely an element of that there. But I also think Doom 3 received a lot of criticism for that exact thing as well. Being a very slow game, especially compared to what Quake and Doom were previously. And, in the case of Doom 3, I feel like they had more of a vision for it, though. Like, they were going for more of a horror vibe. Whereas with Rage, I don't really see the vision because it's broken up into so many different, like, disparate pieces. Like, you have this first-person shooter that, basically you're going into a mission zone and it's on a rail first-person shooter. Like, it's very linear. There isn't a whole lot of paths to explore off to the side. And by and large, the enemies kind of just either run at you or they just hide behind one single piece of cover and don't move until you kill them. And unless you're fighting a boss guy like the flame guys or something like that, who will just come at you and try to burn you. But then you have this open world-ish driving segment, which you get weapons on your car and you can blow up bandits, and there are these like jumps you can do to, do you get anything out of it other than just like achievements? I'm not really sure.
Not
what
really,
you get
no.
Yeah, it's just like a cool thing to pull off with your vehicle that kind of hits jumps and then kind of does whatever it wants once it's up in the air. And there's definitely some cool shit here because, like, when you go into, especially Wellspring, when you first walk into that area and the signage in that area, like the big signs up on the walls, and there's like totally a vibe they're going for. It actually reminds me a lot of like a Fallout. That kind of like post-apocalyptic, but taking visual cues from the past, like big neon signs, and you'd expect it to be like a big Marlboro cigarette advertisement or something like that, in that kind of font usage and stuff like that. And it looks really good, like it's really high detailed and everything. But like when Derek pointed out in his live stream, some of it looks really good, but then other parts of it look really, really bad. Like you look at the text, you look at the textures on the walls, like up close and on the floor and stuff like that, and it looks like mud, basically.
It was really weird because like it's not like it's hogging a lot of resources, because like the sky, which is usually dynamic in games that we're used to, wasn't dynamic. It's just one picture, depending how you're rotating, that's what it is, and it doesn't move. So then you like look down, and I'm up close to this gate, and the gate texture isn't even loaded. It's just there, and it's a blur looking.
The thing you pointed out with the skybox was like, it's just a static picture of clouds and the sun, and it's always that no matter what. Like there's no day night or anything. But then like I said, when I was in Wellspring, that looks incredible, like the signs and stuff like that, and the way that it guides you around that environment is really clever. Like it has like you know, signs that are like pointing, here's the sheriff, this is where the mayor is, this is where that is, and it doesn't have icons that are like pointing you in directions or anything like that. And I feel like that's actually pretty clever use of, like, you know, like teaching you how to navigate the environment by looking at the environment, not just by following a waypoint or something like that. And like the character
sometimes works to its detriment, though. It sometimes works to its detriment, though, because it doesn't show you much. There's things that you can quite easily miss by kind of. Yes, it gives you visual information, but sometimes you need stuff like. It's the second time I played this now.
You were talking about the bounty board or something, right? Yeah,
that you don't know where. Have you found it yet?
No, I didn't. I spent just a little while in Wellspring, and then I went. You know, the quests have you go back and forth between Wellspring and the Hagar settlement. So I went back to the Hagar settlement, and then it wasn't too long after that before I stopped playing.
Yeah, the problem with it is it's kind of this is where the game runs into problems. It's kind of it can be annoyingly obtuse with a lot of silly things. There's a bounty board in there, which kind of a lot of people complain that this game was incredibly short. That it was rumored to be this terrible 4-hour game, and I can't help now thinking of playing it because I'm playing it about 6 hours. I'm sitting in Wellspring, and I know I've got another 4 areas to go. That people didn't find a lot of these missions that are stuck in different parts of these levels because it's kind of this bounty board is not something that sticks out as an asset. It's kind of it's like a hazy kind of like you was just saying, a very poor, what would you like to call it, texture on a wall.
Texture, yeah.
It doesn't look like a bounty board. It just looks like a texture on a wall. So you don't go to it, and you go to it, and it's like, I've got these bounties I can do within levels.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me. And it doesn't tell you to. I think Derek was an heroin. He didn't realise he could get the what do you call the thing? What do you call the boomerang?
I didn't. The wing sticks. I didn't get that.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you to go to the woman.
And I didn't get the scope for the handgun that you had already as well.
Which you go into the store and it just says, it doesn't say, here's the scope for your gun, because the handgun, the general handgun, can not sometimes be very fun to fire because it's not that accurate. And you'll go into the store when it tells you to go into the store that's in the very first area. And it's like, this is eyesight, and you assume it's going to be a binocular, a single eye eyesight.
Yeah.
So you don't buy it. It's like, well, I'm in inside areas, but it's actually a left-handed sight for your gun. So you kind of hold the gun to your... It doesn't tell you this. So you're just stumbling along for a couple of hours with a gun that isn't very satisfying to use.
Yeah, that first...
All the guns are very satisfying to use eventually.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't tell you that if you keep going into the store in Wellspring, you will eventually start buying a shitload of kind of schematics for your weapons. You were saying yourself you was really pissed off with the way you're doled out ammo. Ammo is very scarce, very penny pinching ammo.
Yeah.
You'll get to a store where it's relatively cheap to buy ammo, and it's relatively cheap to kind of you get to craft the big powerful ammo, but that's about 2 hours in. That's probably too long to start doing that sort of stuff.
Right.
It's a very game of two halvesy sort of thing. It's a frustrating game, I think, more than a bad game. I think you think it's a bad game, but I think it's more frustrating than bad. Because you can see him reaching and kind of falling over a lot.
Yeah, I guess I would argue that frustrating for me is bad.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think it's bad. I think it's just...
I think it's a game that had, like you said, you see what they were going for and they weren't able to pull it off. And in my opinion, that's a sign of a game that's not very good. Like it didn't achieve what it was going for. Like that's what the baseline of what a game is supposed to do, right? You see what it's going for, and did it pull it off? No, it didn't, or it did pull it off. And you may disagree with some of the mechanics of the game, but if at least it pulls off what it was going for, then you can respect it on that level. But I feel like the goal and the where Rage ended up landing in terms of like reaching that goal post were not where it needed to be. And that kind of goes to extends a little bit more into the problems that the PC version had and still has to this day, which is, one of the big things was the technology that they built this on, this id Tech 5, which is, I don't really know all the details of it, but the basics of it is supposed to be like the world is this big streaming texture that keeps coming, like loads in dynamically, as opposed to each individual textures loading in individually. And this was kind of like their first crack at it. And this tech, not so much with the latest Doom 2016, but it had problems on PC with Wolfenstein: The New Order, even, and it definitely has problems with this game, where around, like, textures are loading in constantly. This isn't something new. Like, Unreal has had issues with this in the past, where textures would load in, you load in a level, and then the textures would load in or something like that. But this is like happening constantly. Every time you turn around, every time you you point your gun at the sky and then look down, the textures are loading in, and it has a detriment to the performance as well. You can tell that it's trying to load in these textures too quickly. The Hagar settlement in particular, I had really bad performance issues, and I looked up all sorts of different stuff to try and fix it, and I got it working okay, but even still, it's not great. It's not perfect. And this is a game that is a first-person shooter, so you're gonna be turning quickly. You're gonna be whipping your head around. It's the way that these games are supposed to be played. So having these textures load in on the edges constantly, and sometimes not load in at all, is noticeable. It's like it totally pulls you out of it, and just doesn't look good.
No.
And
I've never seen any of that.
Well, yeah, I remember when this game came out, I had got it on PC and was so disappointed with it. I ended up picking it up on Xbox 360, and those issues didn't exist on 360. No. Like, I literally remember testing it out, like whipping the character view back and forth on the PC version, seeing all of this muddy texture load in on the edges, and then doing the exact same thing on the Xbox 360 and not having that issue.
Yeah, platform. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Also, the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3. I don't know what the PlayStation 3 version performed like, but you have a baseline, right? Everybody's Xbox 360 is going to be exactly the same. So
it's bespoke.
You can program it. You can use the memory and the processor and the graphics, whatever, in a very specific way in order to minimize all of this kind of stuff. But when you load it into a PC, and this guy has this graphics card, this guy has this processor, there's this guy has this amount of memory over here, but this guy has this amount of memory over here, it starts to become a problem when you're dealing with, especially like this kind of proprietary technology, kind of like first time putting it out there, and it just didn't seem like it was ready for at least the PC space.
No.
No. Especially from what I was like reading around, because I went to look to see, all right, well, this one's been out for a while. Let's see what kind of mods it has. Maybe it has something for better texture now that we're revisiting it, or something like that. And what we found were basically updates to that id engine. That I guess eventually they patched it in and made it part of the actual game. So in the end, we ended up not needing it.
Yeah, there was a lot of fan-made stuff, like fan-made tweaks to get this to work better on PC, and just the fact that 7 years later, like our PCs still can't run this game well is kind of like fundamental issue with the game itself. Like, it's not like, oh, it was just ahead of its time or something like that. It's like, no, they had some issues going on. And then to talk about the new Wolfenstein: The New Order, I had played all of that game on Xbox One and really didn't notice any problems. Like, I didn't notice any texture issues because it's using the same tech. I believe it's the same version, id Tech 5. Just like, you know, a better looking, more advanced version of it. I didn't notice any problems. Performance was good, and I really enjoyed that game. It was one of the few games that I've got all achievements on. But then I got it on PC for like $8 or something like that. So I was like, oh, cool, I'll play through it again on PC, and it definitely performs and runs and looks better than Rage does, but it still has some of those residual issues where if I'm turning too quickly, I can see these textures loading in on the side. And it's not subtle. Like, it's so obvious that it's happening that no matter how long I played the game or how much I tried to ignore it, I couldn't. So I ended up not playing much of that game on PC. And I don't really know well, I know Doom didn't. Doom, I played that game on PC, and that game was fine. That that game runs amazing on PC. So they've at least figured it out. They've finally gotten over the hump and got the kinks out. Because that game was certainly a return to form for the studio. Like, that was going back to what made Doom, which was fast-paced, precise action and stuff like that.
Yeah, what you're talking about what you just said about ahead of its time, I've said that, and I think kind of people disagree with that. I don't mean it necessarily as a positive. But when I say it's ahead of its time, I mean as in console generation ahead of its time, and not necessarily in a good way. The way it's kind of things they would now be doing seamlessly and blending in together have to be chopped up to fit onto maybe like a 360 system or a PS3 system in a way that you would not get now. That kind of ruin the flow of the game somewhat, I think.
Yeah.
The way they very much separate the shooting section from the driving sections.
Yeah, they feel like completely different games.
Yeah, and also the driving sections, I feel... Now, I don't think... If you were to take the controls of the cars... And I've also... By the way, I've also got a car that is kind of a lot better than the original car. But I have to do 5 races of that in a rubbish car, which you don't generally want to do. Once you do those 5 rubbish races, you get a nice car. Who wants to do that? That's another problem with the game. But yeah... the car's control, like you would imagine a Borderlands car to control, which is floaty, which is what you want when you have a wide open space like you do Borderlands.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they designed the driving to be in a wide open space like Borderlands, but they couldn't do it and they couldn't fit it in. So they put you down a corridor, which means you're floating into the walls and everything every 5 seconds.
Yeah. So
it's kind of, it's this feeling of compromise of everything but the shooting sections.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's a big problem with the game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it really seems like it could have just done without the open world driving sections at all.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like an extra layer that they didn't really need to have there.
Yeah. It's or maybe they did plan on it being more seamless and it's just they had to crunch. It feels like a lot of crunch in this game. A lot of crunch. There's a lot of kind of shortcuts in everything but pacing, I guess. Very strange.
And then
I still think it's enjoyable.
And then you have stuff like John Goodman's a voice actor in it.
Yeah, and you only see him for the first hour.
Right. Yeah, he's only in there for a short amount of time, but still, like what were their priorities here? You know, like. going after John Goodman to be the voice actor, and get that on in the trailer or as a bullet point or something, or
yeah.
I don't know.
Again, though, there's that disconnect. You've got John Goodman, who's a great actor, and you've got all these characters that are drawn, like you would get in a Borderlands, for instance, that are kind of quirky and random. The sheriff is as quirky as the mayor, but you never get the sense that they connect to each other. So you're just drifting from the vendor to the woman that sells you with the wingsuit. And they don't feel like they connect. They're just wacky characters, wacky-ish characters that don't feel quite so wacky because the world's not as wacky as the characters tend to be. When you go to the area where you get your sponsorship for your car, and you get the guy that's running like the game show Gauntlet, who seems to be so wacky he doesn't fit in the game because there's no context with him to anybody else. You're just going to areas and you've got these talking heads giving you. There's no connection. They don't feel like anybody kind of flows into each other. You feel like Tiny Tina knows Roland, for instance, or you feel like Lilith if you play a Borderlands. You feel like they know each other even though they don't always connect. This one, nobody seems to connect. So there's no reason to drift between or attach to one or the other.
Yeah, well,
the sheriff just tells you to go to the mayor.
Yeah, and Borderlands 2 did a better job of that. The first Borderlands didn't. This feels a lot like the first Borderlands in that everyone's just kind of disparate and disconnected from each other. Whereas, with Borderlands 2, they started to move a little bit more like making it feel like everyone knew each other and was a little bit more connected. But this doesn't. Everybody feels like they're just in their little zone, and that's where they spend like literally their entire life. You never see them walking around or anything. The only characters you do see walking around are people you can't interact with on the streets of Wellspring and stuff like that. Just random people.
Hi. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's like, it's strange because I went back to this game last year and I kind of felt like I came away with it a little bit more positive than I am now. And I don't know what changed, like why it's different. It doesn't help when it takes me, a whole night to get the game running at a decent performance, without having to turn everything off. Like, I mean, I could have got it to run good if I turned everything down, but then the mud looked like more mud. So, Derek, when you first loaded it up on PC, were you having performance issues too, or what was your experience?
No, when I first loaded it up, it loaded pretty well. Besides everything being super loud, like anytime that there was a video being played, it was like it was turned up 300%.
Yeah, like the intro videos, like the
intro video, the loading in, the little clip they do when you start up the game, super loud. But then you get into it and everything was like regular. When I first started, it looked good, it played good. It wasn't until I really just started going at it that I started noticing all that stuff. Like all the textures and the muddiness of it. Wasn't until I really started playing. So kind of if you come in and you're at that like standstill where you're just kind of getting your bearings, it was all right. But then once you start to go is when it starts to like.
Yeah, once you get out in the world, or you start having your own, like you can start moving in your own direction basically. As you start to see the seams. Yeah, so interesting thing about what you were talking about with the really loud audio. So when you launch this game on PC, there's the regular version and then there's the 64-bit version. And if you load in the regular version, you get that really loud intro video, but if you load the 64-bit, it's not. I don't know which version you were.
I tried in both because I was messing around with their little benchmarking program to see how that was. And so when you go into the regular version, the 32-bit, it gave me a score of like 400 something. So I was like, sweet. All right, let's hop into the 64-bit and see what happens. And then the score was like 200 something. I was like,
yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah, but it doesn't tell you what a good score is.
No, it doesn't. It's just like, here's
click-
red to green. There's no numbers, but green's good.
Yeah, but what is green?
I have no idea.
You just, it doesn't even run anything. You just click this benchmark button, and it just gives you a number that has no context. And then this chart on the side where it goes from red to green, but no indication of like what number is green. Like, is 200 good, or is 400 good? Is 100 good? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, here, it's a PC version. PC people want their benchmarks in a game. Here you go. But that's it. That's all the thought that went into it.
Yeah, it was weird. The whole thing's weird.
It doesn't render anything. It's just literally click it and boom.
Yeah,
screen with a number.
It has to do with this weird GPU transcoding thing that's in the game, which I think is the reason why over the years the performance has actually gotten worse, because whatever tech was in the drivers of these graphics cards back then isn't anything they care about now today, because it just didn't, like, there's like 5 games in the entire world that use it. And there's like 5 graphical options for PC. Like, that's it. There's like, you can adjust the resolution, you can turn VSync on or off, you can change anti-aliasing,
transcoding on and off,
which you don't really know what it does.
Nope, but
and
click it.
the texture filter, you can go from like nothing to high or something like that, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, come on.
Yeah. Which kind of, like, just out of curiosity now, I might throw it onto my laptop, because that's about like maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah,
it's like a first gen, or it's like the end of the i2 series or whatever. So maybe I'll throw it on there and see what it does.
Yeah, maybe it plays better on an older computer.
Right? I got this brand new computer, and it old game plays like crap. We go back 7 years, and we've got gold.
Yeah.
So there's a devil's advocate thing. You said how you played it first place, so you were incredibly disappointed with your old PC version, so 360. You tried 360, you had a better experience. You kind of, now you've played it on a much more modern PC and been even more disappointed. Yeah. Would you be willing to try the version on the Xbox One X with enhancements? Or has that really stung you too much? Has it really brought the problems to the fore that you won't want to do?
I don't think I enjoy playing the game enough, just in general. No. Like, if it played well, like if it ran well, I don't think I would. I just don't like playing this game.
That's probably a problem.
Which is how I feel now too. But I also remember when it came out, I fucking loved that game. Like, I was so excited for it to come out. Like, I can remember I was so excited for it to come out. I was telling everybody about it. Like, I remember playing it a lot, playing through everything it had to offer, and now it's just like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just for me it just didn't age well. Like, there's so many post-apocalyptic games, there's so many deserts that we've been in. And there's been so many talking heads that give you missions that there isn't anything here that this game is doing that from today's standpoint is kind of worth going back to, in my opinion. You know, the good things from this game, games have already taken the little good bits out and put it in their games and built better things around it, in my opinion, than what this particular experience has to offer.
The real selling point of it was originally look how good the animation, look how well they react. Your enemies react around you. Look at the graphical showcase of not having ragdolls and having them look really nice when they're kind of getting taken out, and it makes you feel like you're in the moment. That's not really special anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone fucking does that now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really hold the same impact, I guess.
Yeah. So you're going to say, Derek?
I was going to say, like, one of the things, like, with the talking heads and this and that, I love when you'd get to an area and you're, like, driving to it, but it wants you on foot, and it's like here's a bunch of yellow posts in the way. Like there's all these areas in this post-apocalyptic world. And then don't want anybody to drive here, so
yeah, they put out the traffic cones.
Yeah, the traffic cones, the little yellow post. Like, sorry. This was important at this time.
And there's like so many areas where you can. It seems like there's gonna be verticality, like you see a ladder up on top of this catwalk, but you just can't get to it. Like it's too high, and it's like, why is it there? Oh yeah, the map's not very good either.
Lee was dying watching me stream this because I couldn't figure out where to go, and I was trying to pay attention to my dots, and it was just hard to differentiate. And he was like, he finally like popped into stream so that he could lead me through this area because I could not figure it out to save my life. And I was like, oh, you have to go the opposite fucking way.
The white dot going on and the very, very light blue radar. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Way off from where he's like, no, you come back there later. And it was like all the way backwards, backtrack all the way through this area to make this little turn up a hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one time when the game is seamless with your combat, but it's only because you throw 2 or 3 people at you. Yeah. Because you go from the car and then you shoot a few people and there's like 3 people you shoot. And then you go inside and there's like 4 dozen. But only when you have that door to separate you, that loading door.
Yep.
But thanks. I see your game.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, like I said, I tried that first Scorchers mission, and then I went on to the second one. And I quit like right at the beginning of that because it was like one of the only points where I'd actually found a ladder. I was like, oh cool, a ladder. I wonder if there's like a secret way that I can sneak in. And I still don't quite understand why the ladder was there because it doesn't seem like there was a way to navigate any of that and up on top of that roof. But I fell off. It was like a 6-foot roof and I died. And it loaded me outside of the mission zone. Like it didn't load me into like it didn't checkpoint me after I loaded into the mission zone. And I just like, I am not having fun with this at all. This
is a big bugbear.
Like when I stopped because I made it up to the boss and the checkpoint was all the way back in the beginning outside that door.
Yeah.
Oh
there's no mid-level checkpoints. You have to do them auto. You have to do them auto. That's so frustrating. I hit that a couple of times as well. That's a massive because some of those levels can be quite winding and lengthy. And I don't want to have to start where I park my car.
Like the quick save, it doesn't give you now. You've got to do like full saves from time to time. Clear room, save.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Or it drops you at your car again.
Yep.
Literally where your car is. It's like, fuck that. No.
And then like that first boss they throw you at was the guy in the turret on that car.
Yeah.
Did you guys get to that?
Yeah, I've gone well past him.
Yeah, I figured you'd I don't know if Derek did though.
Oh yeah. You have to press the button on the wall to send the canister across to blow him up. Trying to shoot him. You can shoot him, I think, but you have to kind of
I didn't even notice that. I shot him.
Yeah, you can shoot him, but it takes a lot of ammo because you've got that like wave of enemies constantly coming too. Once I started noticing the canisters, I couldn't keep enough ammo to ignite a canister and take care of the people. So
there's a column there, and it's a beaconing button on the thing, and then there's a pulley system across the roof that shoots a gas canister, and you shoot it as it goes along the rail.
I didn't notice that at all. I guess that's another thing of like, it's just like, but the game doesn't really explain itself in a way that, like, that would be something that I'd even be looking for.
No, not at all.
Like that's a big problem. I've talked about it with a number of other games. Is like part of me enjoying games is like figuring out the rule set of the game. Because every game has a set of rules. It's like it's a mindset that the developers in when they made the game or something like that.
Yeah.
And when a game like this comes out that doesn't really have any rhyme or reason to a lot of its design choices and stuff like that, it really has I have a hard time with it because like I'll miss stuff like that. Like I wouldn't even click into my head that there was some sort of environmental way to take out the enemy because where else was that in the game?
And it doesn't.
Like,
Yeah, it doesn't happen twice.
Right. It's a one-time thing, and it hadn't happened before. So why would I even think that it was something that the game was going to do?
Did you get to the mission where you're in an underground bunker and you start collecting remote control bomb cars
No.
that you then send into little holes to blow up arenas
No.
and stuff like that? You never use it again. There's never used as a it sets you up as this tutorial to use them, and it never uses it again as kind of something you send into a hole to blow up a system to open a door somewhere. No, it's then just an item you use to blow up some people if you want to see them. And it's like, well, that was a waste.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a waste.
Yeah, I mean, Lee, it sounds like you're a little bit more positive on this. I mean, for one, you played a version of it that didn't have as many technical issues as ours did. But you enjoyed even beyond that, though, right? You enjoy the gunplay and some of the stuff around it.
Once you start because once you start finding the things that benefit you with more money, like I say, the missions you don't realise there are, the bits you add onto the weapons you don't realise, it gets more fun quicker.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't like the driving, but you spend so little driving because it's generally only A to B that it's not a deal breaker for me to do that. It's just an A to B. I'd rather have a fast travel. But I'm in and out of my car, so the driving doesn't annoy me so much. But I think if you're willing to give it the goodwill of a couple of hours and starting to get like the decent assault rifles and the sniper rifles and the crossbow and stuff like that, it starts to get a lot more fun to play as a first-person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much of a horrible panic when they run towards you like lunatics. You can just take them out with a big old beefy shotgun, a double-barrel shotgun, and it's fine. It becomes more fun, but it takes too long possibly to show its wares. But once it does, if you're willing to give it that chance, and it is not this is one thing I will say, as I said, it's not the 4-hour game that everybody said it was. Mm-hmm. It's much substantially longer when you start to unlock these other things and find these extra missions that you're not told to look for. So it's worth playing. It's not like you're going to play a couple of hours and you're going to be done in a couple more. You're going to get enough benefit from playing it further on. But I think the best thing about describe it is if you've got goodwill towards games, if you're willing to give games goodwill, it probably still kind of is worth a go.
Mm-hmm.
If you kind of want something to be more satisfying from an id game from that era, like maybe a Quake 4, it's probably not going to be for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not going to be fun from our dot. So,
well, I was looking back, and Quake 4 is actually made by Raven. That wasn't even an id game.
Wasn't it?
No.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Raven Software made that. So seriously, it was Doom 3 and then Rage, where it was the lineage of id produced games, and then it was Rage, and then nothing until Doom 2016. So it was pretty obvious that they were having some issues internally that were needed to be sorted out with that kind of stuff. Just to put some into context, Steam records how long you've played a game, like from the very first time you've launched it. And it says I've played Rage for 24 hours, which would include probably the 2 hours I played last year, when I revisited it, and probably like 2 or 3 from this year. So all in all, that the original playthrough of that game for me was probably like, I don't know, about 18 hours, maybe 20.
And speaking of like time of the game too, the world record for speedrun is 1 hour and 27 minutes, which is kind of long, because usually like games now we're seeing like 45 minutes, 30 minutes for like speedruns of stuff. So
yeah, depends. I guess it depends what they're taking advantage of.
Yeah, like a lot of them are like the fastest one is 1 hour and 27 minutes, and then after that it's like almost 2 hours, 1 hour 48. 3 hours on another one that tried it. So it's definitely
it's
got
one of the,
stuff there.
Yeah, it's one of the few things with the game that you could say was probably an unfair criticism first time round.
Yeah.
Is it's not this 3-4 hour tech demo that everybody complained about, so don't touch it, don't bother buying it. So I remember very much that being the rhetoric. It's not worth the money it is for the amount of length it is. So you can levy a lot of the other things we said as being an issue, but that is definitely not one of them. But who cares if you're not having fun?
Well, yeah, and like I remember when it came out, I was disappointed in the length. And I just don't understand how I, like, looking back on it, like, how did I spend that much time in here? Like, how did it take me 18 hours to play this game that I felt like was over in a heartbeat? And I don't understand. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at how long to beat, and the average is 11 hours for the main story. So maybe I took longer than most.
It may be because you keep revisiting the same areas. They keep sending you back into the car workshop. So it didn't seem like you was playing it for as much. They do keep sending you into the same back into the same layers.
Yeah, I felt like that would have made it seem longer. Like if I just keep retreading the same area or something like that. I don't know. It's strange. I remember it ending abruptly as well.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember them saying that.
It was like, oh, okay, it's over. Yeah. So whatever. Yeah, I guess. So from what I could tell, the two games, this and Rage 2, kind of don't have a whole lot in common. Maybe the setting a little bit, but it looks like a completely different approach to the combat and the level design and the vehicle sections and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that in the same way that Prey ended up being a kind of a big departure from its original game, that this is also Rage 2 is going to be a little bit of a departure, maybe feel a little bit more like not so many separate parts, which it could still be an issue because we are having two studios working on it, but I'm hoping that they communicate and make the open world driving and the first person shooting feel like the same game. It's just so weird that they weren't able to, like, Rage wasn't the first game to have third person driving and first person combat. Like Halo did it like almost a decade before, and that felt right. That still feels right even today, and I just don't understand why it feels so weird in this. And if
I guess it's just something they never tried before.
I guess so. I don't know.
I don't think they ever did anything like sort of a fast-paced in the moment driving game.
Yeah.
Or that sort of controlling game.
Well, I mean, neither did Bungie.
Yeah.
And like the template was there. Like they didn't have to reinvent the wheel to make another pun. Like I wonder if it's like, so when you jump in the Warthog in Halo, it controls so completely differently than not only any other vehicle that you've probably played in a game before that, but including the actual first person combat, right? And I almost wonder if, like, because it's feels so completely different, you almost accepted it more, whereas with this game, the vehicle controls almost feel a little bit too much like the first person controls, so you're kind of expecting it to control a little bit more precisely and better than it does, but it's just a little bit off. I don't know, it's strange.
Here's a little snippet for you. There's been a lot of preview kind of builds going around for Rage 2. There's been quite a few respectable people doing playthroughs of it, and they're saying they're playing PC obviously. PC builds of it.
Mm-hmm.
The first person shooting stuff feels incredibly good with a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
Apparently the driving is terrible with it, so they've not really actually solved anything. Apparently driving does not feel good with the keyboard and mouse at all.
Well, I think that's never going to be something that feels right, ever.
That'll be something that turns up. There's also something that highlights the difference between two people playing building the same game. I guess
No. I don't ever think driving will ever feel right on a keyboard and mouse.
Do you not? I've never done it. I don't touch it.
No, it's no.
Yeah.
It's because the keyboard is a digital input, so it'd be like, imagine driving in Forza with the D-pad or something like that.
Yeah.
There's no nuance to the controls, whereas if you have the triggers and if you have the analog stick, you could make subtle movements. So it's never going to feel right on a keyboard. I mean, there's certainly things that they can do to make it a little bit better, but it's never gonna feel right. I'm planning on
off the gas and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna play Doom Eternal when that comes out on a keyboard and mouse, because I don't think there's gonna be any driving in that game. If there is, I'd be surprised. But this game, I'm probably gonna get on PC, but I'm gonna use a gamepad with it. Rage 2.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna play a gamepad.
I hear that's recommended.
Yeah.
Very much recommended is the.
So yeah, I mean,
scoop,
going back and replaying this hasn't really changed my outlook on Rage 2. I still think that that's going to be a pretty good game.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be, it's not going to, at least for me, be as disappointing as the first game was, and to an extent still is. Yeah, so I hope it pans out. Because that's coming out. That's middle of next month, right?
Christ, really? Already? Oh.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I think it's the 17th.
Oh, splendid.
Somewhere around there. So that's
14th.
14th. Okay.
Yep.
So it's one of those rare Tuesday releases, which are more rare than they usually are. Yeah. So, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go and revisit this, just to kind of get a perspective on it. I'm going to play some Doom 2016 again, just to get a feel for that, because I haven't really gone back to that since it came out. And yeah, then certainly next month when Rage 2 comes out, I think we're all going to be picking that up, right?
Yeah. Definitely, absolutely. That's a kind of a day one for me.
Yeah.
I like the look of the Doom 16 style ebb and flow of it.
Yeah. Some of those powers look really cool too. Like,
yeah.
It's giving me which I didn't play too much of it, but a look and feel of like a Bulletstorm, where you're kind of like building up these combos almost and shooting. It doesn't seem like it's calculating points like Bulletstorm did, but the way you can chain together the abilities and the shooting and stuff is giving me a feel of that. And if Bulletstorm was, for what little bit of it I played, was okay, but it ended up kind of being kind of like Rage in a way. It ended up being a little bit one note.
Yes, novelty
in the combat. Yeah, once the novelty wore off, it wasn't as fun to pull off these combos as it was at first.
There's a specific gun I've seen in the new one, which is kind of a magnetic dart gun. So you shoot multiple magnetic darts into your enemy, but then if you aim towards a metal structure, it drags them towards that. When you kind of almost like a portal gun in a way. Kind of it sucks them up into where you. Yeah, that looks interesting.
Yeah, it's like a bunch. You can imagine it like you're attaching a bunch of grappling hooks to a bunch of enemies, and then you're kind of like launching them all into one direction. I even saw you could just
cause the FPS.
Yeah, basically. Oh my God, they're doing it. As if you could even just shoot it off into the distance. Like, you don't even have to shoot it into a wall. You can just like shoot it way off into the distance, and it just pulls them flying way out there, and you don't even have to worry about them anymore.
Poot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and what they really haven't showed too much, at least I haven't seen, is like what you're going to be doing in the open world, other than like coming across convoys and stuff like that. I don't know if there's going to be much to explore out there, or if it's going to be kind of like, or how you're even really getting your missions.
Same way. I've seen some of the footage as well. A character from the first one come back in the second one. You see the girl, the crow glaive woman. You see her as a much older woman in this new one, giving you missions. Yeah.
But is it like, is it like the old way where they're just kind of like occupying a space and you go up to them and they never move?
Looks like it. It does look like it. It kind of looks like you go and visit them and they give you the missions and then you go off and do your thing. But yeah, it's them, I think. So it looks like it's set about 20 years later because she's a lot older woman.
Okay. That's a little bit disappointing.
I
like seeing characters move around like as if they're actual real characters moving around the space and doing things, as opposed to just like that wing stick woman literally just leaning up against that pole the entire game.
Oh, well, I'm saying that they may do. I've only seen kind of you converse with her. I haven't seen the in and the out of the scene.
Oh, okay.
They might be walking around, so it might be kind of that. But you do go to see these people.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's one thing I'd like to see a little bit more life out of that. Like, so it doesn't feel like all of these locations are just mission dispensaries, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of it. Even if it's just you go in and it launches a cutscene or something, is a little bit more than just going up to a counter and talking to this guy that's been standing behind it for what feels like 30 years or something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else we want to touch upon before we close it out?
I think we about covered it with that.
Okay.